Furiosa, a Mad Max saga directed by George Miller and released earlier this year in 2024. This is a prequel to George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road, where we were first introduced to the Furiosa character, then played by Charlize Theron. I consider this to be one of the best quality movies shot on video in my 4K collection, so quite excited to take a look at Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Would it be as good as Mad Max Fury Road to look at, or would it in fact be somewhat better, given that 9 years have passed since the previous film was made? Right, first then, the image quality. Going back to Mad Max Fury Road, this was shot at 2.8K, was finished as a 2K and then upscaled to a 4K for the UHD disc. By contrast, Furiosa, 9 years later as I said, shot in 6.5K and 8K, a combination of the two, so finished as a genuine 4K. However, this has got somewhat more of a computer-generated look to it, and my first impression, which has possibly adversely affected my impression for the rest of it all the way through. I've looked at it extensively, and I don't think I'm too far from wrong, but this has an artificial look to it in too many places, whereas Fury Road, I did not get that impression anywhere near as much. Now, there seems to be much more studio work in this one, a lot more blue screen, perhaps some green screen, doesn't really matter, but all to get the computer generated images in there to change the backgrounds, or it's been done completely in a studio and then computer generated to make it look like it was done out on location. There seems to be a lot of that in here, and as a result, particularly some of the early scenes, look at the leaves in the greenery area. They look far too sharp to me. It looks artificial because it is overly sharp. I might be wrong, but that was the initial first impression that Furiosa gave me, and given how well I remember Mad Max Fury Road and how good that looked, that was a disappointment. However, having got that out of the way, after those initial disappointments, once I got into the film, it's excellent. It really is another excellent movie shot on video and issued as a 4K disc. I did see the trailer to this in the BFI IMAX when Dune Part 2 was being screened there as a 1570 blow-up IMAX print, and it looked fabulous. So I think this is another one that the bigger it goes, the better it will look and the better it will disguise any possible inadequacies. Now, as the film goes on, there are some rather obvious CGI shots. The place where they're doing the oil, the petrol, I think that is an obvious CGI in some of the scenes where you see it in the distance, but nevertheless, this is a fantasy. I don't think it's quite the all action of Mad Max Fury Road, but there is the same action and stunts in this. It's fantastic the way this is done, as much as possible in camera with the most outrageous stunts. So if you like Mad Max Fury Road, don't expect quite the same. You might find some of it a little disappointing because it may be dialogue driven, but overall I think this is much the same thing as Mad Max Fury Road, and as far as I'm concerned, this does blend in extremely well to focus on the character Furiosa from a young girl to a young woman, and then to Furiosa as we knew her in Fury Road. I think it tells the story quite consistently. We get to know the origin of Furiosa, how she came to be who she was, and what the motivations were. So in that regard, I ended up very much enjoying this, but just like Mad Max Fury Road, it took a first screening to understand it, and then I actually watched Fury Road all the way through a second time, thoroughly enjoyed it. With Furiosa, because I got used to Fury Road, I was in a better frame of mind, I suppose, to understand this first off, and so it only took a scoot through for important sequences afterwards to understand it and think, yes, I rather enjoyed that. Now, it had an estimated budget of $168 million and took at the worldwide box office $174 million. It has a running time of 2 hours and 28 minutes. The aspect ratio is approximately 2.40 to 1. Comes with Dolby Atmos sound as a default, but there is a menu option for 5.1. First off in here, given this is THX 5.1, I opted for the 5.1 sound, but the dialogue I found a little too incoherent at times, so possibly an incompatibility issue with my system, or possibly the 5.1 sound is just not quite as good as the Dolby Atmos, because I went back and played much of the film again in Dolby Atmos, and I found it was far more enjoyable and better sound than the 5.1. So perhaps even for those of you out there with 5.1 systems, that is the way to go, Dolby Atmos. Now, the young girl who plays young Furiosa, Alyla Brown, I think she's excellent. I was so taken in by her, and then she blends in so well to the slightly older character, Anya Taylor-Joy. And in fact, I was so into the film, it took me a while to realise I was looking at Anya Taylor-Joy. So I thought they worked perfectly well together, and when it becomes Charlize Theron for when you watch Mad Max Fury Road again, I think you'll find the complete character arc is there, and as I said, I think it works extremely well. Obviously the film didn't do too well at the box office around the world, but I think that's going to be made up by the streaming downloads and also the home video sales, whatever else can bring the money in. I think this one will be a success eventually. Yes, I understand not everyone's going to be entirely happy with it, given it's a sequel, prequel to Mad Max Fury Road, and perhaps there's not quite as much action and stunts as in the earlier film, but I ended up liking it very much, and I have to admit that anything with Anya Taylor-Joy in it lately, since last night in Soho and The Northman, I'll tend to want to take a look at, and those eyes, really piercing eyes that the younger girl, Alyla Brown, matches so well in her portrayal. I just think it all works extremely well. Great looking movie shot on digital video, fantastic sound. I think everyone's going to love the sound, irrespective of whether or not you have a bit of an issue with somewhat incoherent dialogue some of the time. I just think if you like to give your system really good workout, and the bigger the screen you've got, the better this is going to look. I think this one can be recommended for most, but if you're not into dystopian science fictions, then perhaps Furiosa and Mad Max Saga is not the one for you. But when it comes down in price a bit, perhaps give it a try, see what you think. And talking about it coming down in price a bit, I think in HMV it might have already been down in price. I went into HMV Swindon again, which in this part of the country does seem to be one of the best HMVs around. A very extensive 4K section. In fact, the whole floor up there, more than half the floor is taken up by home video. There's music up there as well, but a massive floor of 4K Blu-ray and DVD. And I went in there really because I finally succumbed, and it was on the shelf, Alien Romulus. So a lot of people have been asking me if and when I'm going to be taking a look at that. So I guess that's coming sometime soon. And I thought quite fitting, given that I'd taken an extensive look of Aliens, including the 4K of Aliens recently, and done 2 videos on that great film. So I thought Alien Romulus, it might be pertinent to do a review of that now. And another one I got in HMV Swindon, which was also on the shelves, was Signs, which I think had only come out in the last couple of weeks. So there are some new releases on the shelves besides these 2, but these were the 2 I went for this time. Others will have to wait for a way down the line perhaps, but such a great time in HMV Swindon. Lovely staff as usual, great manager. I shot this on Monday, which would have been 16th of December 2024, wouldn't it? And there weren't many people in the shop, so it was a good opportunity to get some shots of the shop without too many people in the way. But the point is, don't forget to support your local home video stockist. I know there might be sometimes cheaper options online, but they haven't got physical shops to pay for. Over here in the UK, we're still lucky to have some, and in particular HMVs around the country. Now, before I go this time, I thought I'd show you another type of Blu-ray. This is available on DVD as well. That's something I tend to watch around Christmas time. I do tend to watch a lot of Christmas films, but how about Tchaikovsky's 3 classic ballets, Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty and the Nutcracker. These were issued, they were shot and then issued by the Royal Opera House. So a great theatre if you ever get the chance to go in there to see something, if you can afford it. I did actually see Swan Lake there years ago with a very good friend my wife and I went with, Shirley Bucklow. She sadly died far too young, and That's something I think about often, but whenever I watch this, it reminds me of that great night the three of us had at the Royal Opera House, right up in the gods, because that was all we could afford. But we at least saw the great Tchaikovsky Swan Lake on stage, and to cap it all that night, Darcy Bustle was the prima ballerina, and has there ever been anyone better? So what a great ballet dancer she was, and what a treat to see Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake at the Royal Opera House. And now with this later production, I've had this for some time, I think this was 2009, this one was shot, Swan Lake, and then Sleeping Beauty I think was 2013 or 2014, around that time, and the same with the Nutcracker. But sort of different Blu-ray perhaps that might interest some around Christmas, but got this from CEX some time ago when I saw it in there for £22. Thought I can't afford that, came away, then spent the next couple of days thinking about it, went back and got it. So one to look out for. Don't think there are many available on Blu-ray or were ever made available on Blu-ray. So I think if you look this up on CEX and on eBay and places, you might have to find it as a DVD, but I'm sure it's still very good. Right. If I don't speak to you all again before, or even before New Year, have a Merry Christmas. But hopefully I'll put together another top 10 4K of the year for 2024. Till the next video, bye bye for now.